Hello there, people of the internet. So once again, this video stems from a conversation I had with someone. I was talking to somebody about guns that are good enough, and they were telling me how I don't have to spend all of this money on some of these nicer, I've got some pretty nice rifles. I don't have to spend a lot of money on these nicer rifles when some kind of bottom of the barrel budget rifle would work for a substantially less cost, but at the same time it would basically do the same exact thing. And I'm like, I could absolutely see where you're coming from. There's a lot of really good options out there, especially for the amount of money that you pay. However, whenever I buy things that are a dramatically better quality than what you would be getting at those price points. And that doesn't necessarily matter if that rifle is able to do the same exact thing. Like, for example, if I were to spend $1,000 on a 308 and then $250 on a 308 just to lob 308 down at the range here, I could see why the $250 rifle would be appealing as opposed to the $5,000 rifle. However, that $250 rifle is made with garbage materials, and the quality control on them is going to not be great, and who knows how they're going to stand up to the test of time. There's a lot of people out there who tell me I have XYZ rifle from my grandfather. I'm like, hell yeah, they definitely don't make them like they used to, and the rifle that you have is probably not made from the bottom of the barrel materials that modern rifles nowadays are being made from. Like, I don't want to, ruffle any feathers or anything like that, but I know that the Ruger American and like the Savage Access and your sub $400 rifle range there, those rifles, I have no idea how well they're going to stand up to the test of time, and we just don't know that. And I'm sure I'm going to have people come in and say, I have this model, which is this price from 1970, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, quality control has definitely gotten way worse with modern day stuff than it was all that time ago. Throughout the past, even throughout the past 20 years or so, we have seen a dramatic decrease in quality control whenever it comes to our guns. We've seen some increases as well, but we've seen some decreases. Companies are just focused on making guns as cheaply as possible, and they're basically making them disposable. And they're making guns that aren't going to last through the generations like what we are used to. Like, for example, I buy a lot of military surplus. This is a Yugo 2447, and this rifle right here is probably nearing, 100 years old at this point. And I'm over here still loading this thing and firing this thing. This rifle, if taken care of, is absolutely going to be still shooting long past me being here. But it still sends the lead down range. It still sends it down range accurately, which is phenomenal for a rifle that is as old as this thing is. And I'm able to hit my target downrange. This Turkish stuff kicks kind of hard. But this is a 100-year-old rifle at this point, and it is still up and rocking. And hell, rifles of this design, this is a 98 action, so that's 1898. But rifles of this general genre were coming into creation as early as the 1970s. We start seeing repeating rifles and whatnot starting to show up. Hell, look at the lever action 1860 Henry. You get yourself some of those. Those are still existing and firing to this day. If you can manage to get yourself some 44 Henry rimfire or convert yours to center fire, that's a topic for another video. But those old guns are still rocking to this day. And just the amount of quality and effort that went into these firearms to make them as absolutely rock hard, indestructible as possible, that's not something that we see nowadays. Up until I'd say the 2000s or so, maybe even the 90s, where quality control really started to dip in favor of cutting costs and getting more products out there than they were before, even if those products are of a lesser quality, simply because people are going to be paying less to get something that would last their lifetime or last enough for what their use is. Like me running a gun channel, I come out here and I run guns all day long. If I have a rifle, I'm running thousands and thousands of rounds through that rifle. So if I get something bottom of the barrel, odds are that rifle's probably not going to hold up very well, or that handgun, or that insert XYZ item here. This right here is a good example. This right here is a polymer frame striker fire handgun. This right here is a Taurus Spectrum in 380. These are not very expensive, and they don't have a whole lot of quality control or quality to the material. as a result of the price points. I mean, they're good guns. This one's accurate. I make shots at 40 yards regularly with this thing. You guys have seen this on the channel before if you want to know more about it. I got videos up about it. But I'm not talking about the gun. I'm talking about this type of handgun. Who knows how the polymer on this thing is going to hold up in the next 100 years? I know here in the state of Florida, I've got 20-year-old plastic that, you know, I have around here, and just here in the state of Florida, plastic gets brittle and it cracks up, and I don't know if I'd want to shoot something like this 20 years from now here in the state of Florida, especially if it's been used. Who knows how brittle that plastic's going to be, and I don't want to like pick it up, fire it, the frame break, and I get a face full of slide. I don't know what's going to happen with that. You don't know what's going to happen with that. We don't know how well this polymer is going to hold up. And over time, I'm sure that at one point in our future, it's going to get to the point to where people are like, hey, don't shoot those old plastic handguns because the plastic has deteriorated and they are now unsafe. You got to swap out your frame if you feel like shooting that. I bet that's probably going to happen at some point in the future. Will that be that big of a deal? I doubt it. I'm sure with just how many of these handguns that are out there, not these, but polymer framed handguns like this, I'm willing to bet that somebody's going to be making polymer frames to replace the old school polymer frames that we're seeing nowadays. But the point is, what you're getting is probably not going to last you. I mean, there's guns from, you know, previous generations that were intended and not designed to last, like the Italian Vetterli rifle in 6.5 Carcano, with that sleeved barrel that they have there. The Italians knew that that thing was not going to last. It was intended to be a last-ditch rifle, and it just wasn't supposed to make it through the ages. Well, we do have some that did make it through the ages because they weren't fired all that much. It was definitely not a front-line kind of rifle. So that's an example of a rifle that was made with the intentions of not necessarily lasting. Or the Liberator pistols in World War II. Those were very much made with the intention of not necessarily lasting. I mean, that's kind of what the same kind of concept that you have nowadays. They don't really care about longevity. Whereas if you get something like this right here or this right here, a Mosin Nagant 9130 refurbished by the finish. This was a front-line soldier's rifle to defend their homeland. They needed these as like as strong, as durable as possible. And as a result, with these strong, durable tools, these are still like very much being used nowadays. Not only they're still being used nowadays, but they're still accurate and reliable and doing the same job that they were doing back then. They're sending lead down range with as much efficiency as they were 100 years ago whenever they were made. And they're going to continue to do that 100 years from now, whereas something like this right here might not be able to pull that off. And it doesn't have to be just like handguns. A lot of your rifles nowadays are being made with polymer stocks and being made with far softer metals than something like this right here. The metals are strong enough to be able to handle, you know, most of what people are wanting to handle, but you get somebody who hand loads and he starts rolling in some overpowered ammunition or something like that, and maybe that rifle starts to wear out, maybe headspace starts to get put off, or maybe repeated fire is going to throw off headspace. I know there's guys out there that say they have thousands of rounds through these rifles, and by all means, good for you. Once that material is decades old, putting thousands of rounds through that rifle might wear it out to the point to where it starts to get dangerous. I mean, I don't know, you don't know, this is just conjecture on my point. But whenever you have poorer quality materials, they're just not going to last as long as your better quality materials like these right here. And we are seeing a lot of guns nowadays that are made with poorer quality materials simply because of price point. I mean, why would somebody go out and spend $1,000 on a rifle if they're just going to go hunting once or twice a year and throw 20 rounds of ammo a year through that rifle if they're lucky? As a matter of fact, I really like the idea of getting a bunch of cheap guns and reviewing them. I might do that. Might do that at one point or another on this channel. I definitely need more of an income to be able to pull something like that off, though. But modern guns just aren't made to last for generations, the cheap ones anyway. Of course, you get what you pay for if you go out and spend a bunch of money on some kind of high-end firearm, or some kind of steel frame firearm. Like, for example, I know a lot of the 1911s out there are probably going to last maybe not the plastic grips on them. You might have to replace those, and maybe some of the springs inside of them, just because they're made of less quality material than some of the older 1911s. If we're talking about like budget 1911s here, some of the springs are probably going to wear out a little on the quicker side, and the finish is probably going to wear off a little faster. I imagine it would probably still work. I mean, in terms of finish, you don't need a lot of finish on your firearm to be able to use it. I mean, this right here is obviously, the finish is gone on this one, but I'm still out here using it. I just sent some ammo downrange. But your cheap modern stuff simply is not made to last. And that was not always the case, because a lot of your like old school stuff, even though it was being made cheaply, a lot of that stuff was still made to last. Like your early 1911 pocket pistols, or not 1911, your early Colt pocket pistols, like the Colt pocket hammerless or something like that. We literally still see those nowadays, and they're still sending lead downrange. Or let's go like even earlier than that. There were a lot of like pocket revolvers and whatnot, like 32 caliber pocket revolvers that were used for pocket guns before auto technology was even a thing. We still see those literally sending lead downrange to this day nowadays. This generation here is just, we try to make things as cheaply as possible and try to make like using the cheapest materials that we can possibly get our hands on. And polymer is definitely one of the cheapest materials that we can possibly get our hands on. It's literally just molded plastic. And I don't know how well it's going to hold up to the test of time. Only time will tell that. So whenever I'm in my 50s and I'm writing an article for some magazine somewhere talking about guns, and I'm like, I called this 100 years ago whenever I was young, and we'll be like, I just simply knew that they weren't going to last, because it's just the nature of what plastic is. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching. There's a spider on my Mosin. Excuse me, sir. Neon green spider. Look at that. Get out of here, you. But let me know what you guys' thoughts are down below in the comments section. I'm sure that you guys will be willing to do that. Like, subscribe, share, description below, link to all sorts of stuff. Go check that out. You guys go off, have a fantastic day. I'm gonna go do something else. I'll see y'all later. Since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. Shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.